Dí Vermaden is Misha Michelle Cullity. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to the first live webinar series brought to you by the PDST Primary STEM team. We hope that you all enjoy the next hour or so and that you will leave today's webinar with some ideas and insights into the learning opportunities that we will all have in our home gardens. We hope that some of these ideas will help you in your role as teacher in these challenging times.
Eva Georgia, I'm Kathleen Byrne. We are really looking forward to exploring STEM in the garden with you over the next hour. We hope you all have a nice cup of coffee or tea there and that you're able to relax and enjoy the content we have prepared for you this morning. We are delighted with the level of interest in our webinar series with 1,000 primary educators registered for this webinar today. So thank you all for taking the time to join us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Timmins, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A for today's webinar, along with my colleagues Barbara, Siobhan, and Patrick. We are really looking forward to seeing your questions this morning. Michelle will now take you through the introduction for today's webinar, which will include how to use the Q&A feature.
Thank you, Paul. Before I start the introduction, can I just take this opportunity to thank Paul for creating the wonderful ambience as you entered the webinar. I could safely say it's the first live webinar to have live music on entry, so thank you to Paul for sharing his talents with us all. We look forward to next week's intro. Our key messages for today's webinar are on your screen now. STEM integration means planning for rich tasks which explore mathematics and science skills and content meaningfully rather than in a tokenistic way. Integrated STEM learning involves carefully planned activities which interweave content, skills, and concepts related to maths and science. STEM learning experiences should be linked to real-world contexts where pupils have the opportunity to apply and develop problem-solving and reasoning skills in an authentic and creative way. The primary SESE curriculum centres around the pupils' understanding and appreciation for their own local context and environment, spiralling outwards into exploration of the wider world. STEM tasks and learning experiences should provide opportunities to engage pupils in productive struggle, harnessing their natural curiosity to solve problems in the world around them. Inquiry-based and playful pedagogies can support pupil learning in STEM in all contexts and settings. Children's current understandings and existing ideas should be used as a starting point in STEM, with teachers eliciting, supporting, and extending these through appropriate questioning. The 1971 primary school curriculum placed a huge emphasis on environment-based learning and activity and discovery methods. These principles were revised and again endorsed in the 1999 curriculum, where a wider range of learning principles were introduced. 4 of these principles can be seen in green, and they have helped to influence our content today, as well as the quote at the bottom of your screen. First-hand experience that actively engages the child with the immediate environment and with those who live in it is the most effective basis for learning. Today's webinar will take the following format. We will be finished the introductory session shortly, after which we will be exploring 3 different sub-themes of STEM and the garden. Under each of the sub-themes, birds, trees, plants and mini beasts, we will examine curricular links, sample learning experiences and additional resources. We will also look at the opportunity for using a story as a stimulus to explore STEM topics. We will conclude today's webinar by guiding you towards some useful resources available to schools and answering some of your questions should time permit. We would love your participation in today's webinar, and this can be done in a number of ways. Throughout the hour, we will ask you to take part in numerous polls which will appear on your screen and help us to interact with each other. If at any stage during the webinar you have a question, please type it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Our colleagues Paul, Barbara, Patrick and Siobhan are on hand to help answer any of your STEM queries and will endeavour to get to as many questions as possible. At the end of the webinar, you will be directed to an evaluation form. We have made this as short and manageable as possible and would greatly appreciate your feedback as it will help to guide us for the upcoming webinars. We have compiled a lot of the resources which we will look at during the webinar into teacher-friendly reference sheets and documents. These are currently being uploaded to our website and we hope to guide you towards them at the end of the webinar. To that effect, please don't feel the need to write furiously during the webinar. We want you to have a pleasant learning experience, and we also hope to make a recording of this webinar available to participants after the event. We might take this opportunity to find out a little more about the teachers joining us today. As you will now see your first poll appear on screen. Thank you so much for your participation in the poll, and it's really lovely to see such a wide variety of class settings represented this morning. In preparation for this webinar, we had the pleasure of stumbling across a lovely website entitled Engage with Nature. This delightful website is packed with resources for schools and aims to help foster a love of learning about the natural environment with children. We are delighted to seek expert advice from the founder of the website, Dr. Paddy Madden, who was inspirational to us in his passion, dedication and care. We asked Paddy to say a few words for us today to help to set the scene, and we are very grateful that he obliged. So we will now take a few moments to hear from Paddy.
Hello, I'm Paddy Madden. Today I'm going to talk about the benefits of school gardening. First of all, I'm going to read an extract from a piece written by the nature writer Mary Caldwell in the BBC Wildlife magazine in March 2019. And she wrote about STEM skills acquired in nature, but it applies to gardening. She wrote, "Studying nature outdoors develops key aspects of STEM skills, such as it requires creativity, adaptability and resilience, as well as the ability to deal with messy data that doesn't fit the expected patterns studied in a laboratory. There are constantly changing parameters in the natural world, such as seasons, tides, weather patterns and behaviour of species. To be an accomplished student of the natural world is to be a quick thinker, problem solver, intellectually curious, practical and flexible." She was writing about nature in general, but her writing is relevant to gardening as well. For example, other STEM skills developed in gardening or acquired through gardening are observing, innovating, measuring, predicting, fair testing, analysing, problem solving, flexibility. Then, of course, you have the physical benefits of gardening, which would be better fitness levels, healthier eyesight because you're looking into the distance, healthier eating habits, eating organic produce, development of fine motor skills by thinning and by sowing seeds, and increase in vitamin D, which builds up your immune system. There are mental health benefits of working in the garden, such as a reduction in stress and anxiety levels, an increase in serotonin levels and a release of endorphins, which increases happiness. Also, mood-enhancing microbes in the soil also increase well-being and happiness. Mindfulness and attentiveness to species, to growing, to crops, to creatures that might destroy them, and weather, that's all developed in the school garden. Resilience is also developed, and adaptability and coping skills, because plants are subject to all kinds of perils. So we move on then to another skill that's developed: socialisation skills, children working together, caring qualities developed, looking after plants, sensory learning outdoors, the best type of learning, life skills such as cooking, harvesting, storing and actually growing vegetables. And finally, the world of gardening is one of uncertainty. Uncertainty is the genesis of creativity, a key aspect of STEM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paddy. What a lovely way to set the scene for today's webinar. We're very grateful for that. I'm now going to hand you over to Kathleen, who's going to take a look at our first sub-theme, birds.
Thank you, Michelle. And yes, that really was a lovely scene set by Paddy there for today's webinar. So our first theme for this morning's webinar is birds. Birds are fascinating to study at any time of the year. However, in the current circumstances, many people are really enjoying the beautiful bird song they are hearing in their local environment. There is something for everyone when exploring the theme of birds. Some children enjoy learning about the various species of birds. Some like to wonder about how and what birds eat, while others enjoy designing and making houses and bird feeders to help their local birds. In this section, we will explore the theme of birds in a number of ways. Firstly, we will take some time to consider the cross-curricular links of this theme alongside the potential skill development in maths and science. Following this, we will explore 3 bird-themed STEM activities which demonstrate the potential learning both at home and in school. We will then consider how each task can be modified to suit pupils of all ages and abilities. We will also explore the T, technology, and E, engineering elements of each activity and how best these areas can be promoted and developed in the classroom or while engaging in distance learning. Finally, at the end of this section of the webinar, we will provide you with some web links where you can take the time to explore the theme of birds further. This image was created using the Popplet software, which is available in both desktop and mobile formats. At the moment, due to current circumstances, Popplet have made their app for use on a phone or tablet free to download. We have chosen to use this app to clearly and concisely show the curricular links and skill development for each theme in this webinar. However, it would also serve as a fantastic tool for thematic planning in the classroom. As you can see from this particular Popplet, the theme of birds allows for comprehensive integration across the primary school curriculum. As we explore each of the upcoming STEM activities, we will be sure to highlight these curricular links and skills as we go. Please feel free to take a moment to read through each section of this Popplet. On the left-hand side of the diagram, the curricular links in maths and science can be seen. We suggest that this theme links with the measures, shape and space, data, and early mathematical activity strands in maths, which are coloured green, and with the living things and environmental awareness and care strands in science, which are coloured blue. On the right-hand side, we can see a number of skills that can be developed through carefully selected activities and tasks in the theme of birds. Once again, the math skills are in green and the science skills in blue. As we explore the following activities, we will be sure to highlight these curricular links and skills. This format will be followed in all sections, so it will be very familiar to you by the end of the webinar. As mentioned earlier, children and adults alike are noticing and recognizing the birds all around us, perhaps more than ever before. Children may be wondering or asking about the various birds that they are seeing in the garden, local area, or nearby park. A nice activity to harness children's natural curiosity about birds is to undertake a bird hunt. A bird hunt encourages children to take some time to observe the natural world around them, while developing a number of other skills too, such as prediction, observation, and recording data. A possible starting point is to have children get used to hearing bird song and differentiating between the different songs of birds that they hear. From here, a bird hunt such as this one could be designed, where the focus is on the characteristics of birds. A task such as this allows the children to experience success regardless of their age, ability, and knowledge of bird species. Furthermore, a bird hunt such as this can still be very successful, even if there are only 1 or 2 species of birds in your local area. Before beginning this task, perhaps you could ask the children to list all of the different characteristics of birds that they can think of. These can be physical characteristics such as big birds, white birds, birds with orange beaks, or they could describe the behavior of a bird, for example, birds singing, eating, flying. Children may wish to create their own bird hunt from this selection, or perhaps they could design one for a friend to complete. This task has obvious links with the living things strand of the science curriculum, but let's consider the potential for meaningful integration with maths as well. Asking children about how they are going to record can open an interesting discussion about tally charts, lists, and how to organise data. Furthermore, when the hunt is completed, how are they going to represent their information? Could they use a bar graph? Would a line graph suit for this type of data? Where appropriate, why not explore number through questions such as, what fraction of the birds recorded were flying today? Of course, this task can be extended to include the identification of different bird species with the use of identification cards or previous content covered in class. One of the characteristics of birds we observed in our bird hunt was that of eating. Many children are intrigued by the way in which birds search for and eat their food, whether it is watching birds stamp on the ground simulating rainfall to entice worms to the surface, or whether it is seeing birds swoop dramatically into the sea to catch a fish. Children from a young age notice that different bird species have different shaped beaks. This obvious difference between birds allows for some incredible inquiry-based learning through exploration and discovery. We would like you to watch the following video of an activity called Battle of the Beaks. It's taken from St. Comgall's PS in Northern Ireland, who've kindly given us permission to share this today. While watching the video, we would like you to consider the following. While this video is set in a classroom, how would you adapt it for the home during distance learning? And what scientific and mathematical skills can you see the children using and developing during this activity? We will then invite you to answer a poll on this question, which will appear after the video. And thank you to St. Comgall's PS for sharing that with us. And apologies if there are any sound difficulties there, but I'm sure you got a good impression of how that activity is completed. Because as you saw in this video, this task is a practical one, which investigates beak adaptations in bird populations and looks at the way in which variation in beak shape is related to the available food sources within an environment. Simply put, pupils simulate bird feeding by using a beak to collect food and place it into a stomach. There are 4 different beak shapes and a range of different food types to choose from. If completing this at home, children could select either a spoon, tweezers, clothes pegs, straw, chopsticks, barbecue tongs as their beak, and a paper cup for the stomach. Remember to only use one hand though, because a bird has only one beak. This task card giving a full explanation of the activity is available in our resource section. Once again, it's important to consider the meaningful STEM integration potential in this task. In terms of maths, there's a wide range of possible investigations with this task, such as adding a timed element to certain parts of the activity. For younger children, perhaps they could engage with the activity in order to practice their sorting and classifying skills from the early mathematical activity strand of the infant maths curriculum. This activity, through hands-on interactive exploration and inquiry, may provide some answers to children's questions about birds and their beaks, but it may also inspire additional questions that they can then investigate further. Consider the function of a bird's beak. It is evolved with a clear purpose, typically collecting food, but this differs between species. Following the Battle of the Beaks task, why not challenge children to design and make their own beak from household items? Perhaps criteria could include the beak must be able to pick up 2 different food types, or it must be able to pick up 30 pieces of food in a minute. Is there a way to make this task more cognitively challenging? Is there a way to adapt it for children with learning needs? As with all of these activities, there's lots of potential for teachers to differentiate depending on age and ability. Another fascinating aspect of birds and their habitats is the incredible engineering that produces the bird's nest. The sight of a bird's nest can captivate children, whether it is up in a tree, in a bush, or in the eaves of a house roof. Investigating bird nests allows for further inquiry-based work by exploring the different materials used by birds while making a nest. In this activity, children are invited to follow the design and make process to explore, plan, make, and evaluate to design and make their own bird's nest. It is worthwhile to spend time at each of these 4 stages in the process in order to allow the children time to develop the relevant skills at each point. Begin the activity by going outside to the local environment and see if you can find any birds' nests nearby, with supervision and of course ensuring to adhere to the most current government advice. If they find one, observe it carefully from a distance. Do not get too close and disturb the nesting birds. Guided questions could include, can you tell what materials the nest is made with? Can you see anything in the nest? Does it look like a strong nest? If there are no birds' nests outside, perhaps a search for pictures of birds' nests online would be a suitable alternative. How many different types of nests can you find, and what are the nests made with? After this initial exploration phase, it is time for the children to plan their nest. They may wish to sketch the plan for their nest at this point, or maybe write a description of the materials they will use and how they will use them. This allows the children to focus their thinking before they begin gathering materials to build their nest. It is important to set the parameters for what materials are permitted. For example, only materials that are already on the ground or in a hedge, rather than damaging a tree or plant. Next, and again with supervision and following social distancing measures, children can look around their garden or their local area for their materials chosen during planning, such as twigs, leaves, and grass. Then children can use the materials they collected to follow their plan to build a nest. Finally, it is essential to take the time to evaluate the design of the nest and decide on any changes they would make in the future. This stage of the process will depend very much on the preset criteria from the beginning of the task. Were they asked to design a nest they would hold an object, for example? Maybe a hard-boiled egg or a golf ball? Did the nest have to sit suspended a certain height off the table? Perhaps sitting with its edges resting on the spines of 2 upright books 15 centimeters or more off the table surface. The decision for inclusion of different criteria will obviously depend on the child's age and ability, but having a set criteria allows for an engaging evaluation stage as well as the potential for meaningful integration across the STEM disciplines. So here you can see some of the additional web links mentioned previously through the webinar, and also that may assist you in finding more activities and information about the theme of birds in STEM. A compiled list of all web links will be available in our webinar resource section on the website. Over now to Michelle for our section on trees.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Just before we start to look at the sub-theme of trees, we might just give a little check-in with Paul on the Q&A and see, have you any questions coming in, Paul, that you might like to share with us?
Thanks, Michelle. Plenty of questions coming in so far. But we actually received a number of questions during the week in the lead up to today's webinar. So I thought it might be nice to start with one of those questions as it particularly relates to the theme of birds that we've just looked at. So Christine from Dundalk has asked if there are any resources available to help children to identify a bird by their song, for example, for a child with a visual impairment. So first of all, thank you, Christine, for this excellent question. To be honest, this was a question that we did not have an immediate answer for. However, we did some research during the week and discovered a fantastic website, www.greennews.ie. which has audio recordings of different bird songs, which you might find useful in this particular instance. I know it's certainly something that I'll be using myself in the future. And I imagine other participants might wish to use it as well. So we hope this answers your question, Christine. Back to you, Michelle, to take us through the next theme, trees.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you again, Christine. That is indeed a fabulous question, and I'll be sure to include that in my future work also. So our next theme that we're going to explore is the theme of trees. I'm sure I don't speak for myself when I recall the wonderful memories I had as a child which involved trees. Albeit organically, a lot of my learning experiences involved climbing trees, making huts under trees, making bark rubbings, collecting leaves and pressing them in the Aircom phone book to later use for art activities. In my primary school days, we were on a continuous scavenger hunt when we saw different trees, leaves, seeds and fruit, always mindful of bringing something new to the nature table on a Monday morning. It is amazing how that childhood awe can gradually fade away as we grow up, and I for one have certainly enjoyed a newfound appreciation for the wonder of trees of late. In this section of the webinar, we will explore 3 tree-related activities: compiling a tree journal, making a sensory box, and building a raft. We have linked our theme to the science and maths curriculum, as you can see on this slide, while also exploring the opportunities for skills development within each activity. I will give you a moment to have a look at these now. Our first activity is to create a tree journal. This can take many different forms and is a very open activity which is accessible to all. We will take a moment to look at a short video of a little girl reading her tree journal of a sycamore tree for us.
My tree journal. What tree have you chosen? I chose this tree in my front garden. What can you observe about your tree? My favourite observations were there are no bare branches on my tree and there are 3 different colours on the leaves. How old is my tree? To investigate how old my tree was, I wrapped a piece of ribbon around the bark. It measured 34 centimetres. Each 2.5 centimetres represents 1 year of growth. My tree is approximately 13 and a half years old. This is the ribbon I use. This one. How many leaves are on it? I counted 163 leaves on one branch. There are 26 branches on my tree. So if I add 163 26 times, I will have a rough idea. 4,238. But not all branches have the same number of leaves, so it's just a guess. Can you sort some leaves by size? Big, medium, small. Can you sort some leaves by colour? Light green, dark green, purple. Can you take a rubbing of your leaf? I use my pencil to do that. What can you observe about the bark of the tree? It feels rough. It is shaped like a cylinder. There are patterns on it. I can see brown, grey and black on it. It looks old. There are spots in some places. It is hard and strong. It makes a noise if I tap it. Can you find your leaf on this page? It's a sycamore!
This activity presents many learning experiences for children and also allows them the opportunity to take charge of their own learning and be creative in their responses. Although a scrapbook was chosen by this little girl, a tree journal can take many formats: written, pictorial and digital. Digital tools such as Book Creator, Write Reader and iMovie could be useful in completing this activity. Differentiated tasks and questions can ensure that all children, regardless of age or ability, can experience success with this activity. A tree journal can involve all learners from junior infants to 6th class, as can be seen from the wide variety of potential tasks to include. Children can be encouraged to watch their tree over a period of time and notice changes in leaves, and watch out for different visitors, mini beasts and birds. The tree journal links closely with measure, shape and space, data, early mathematical activities and number in the maths curriculum. In the science curriculum, this task links seamlessly with the strand of living things while also helping to develop the skills of observation, classifying, recording, expressing, and communicating. Mar cuid den aber atá siúil don dílan crin, beidir go méid tú ag iarraigh survey ar chrín a dhéanamh freisin. Tá gníomhíoch de gin ar an siad, atá féiliúnach de gach rang. Moltar de fáistí, mappa a dhéanamh don Gardaín nó don Ceantar Magard. An sin, íirtar orthú brathanú ar na crin atá le feiceáil agus iad a bhreacha síos ar an mappa. Is féidir leo a bheith ag obair ar seo thar tréimhse agus a cuid torthaí a chlárú ar bhealaí éagsúla. Three journal activities can be assigned to reinforce specific maths content areas, such as fractions, place value, and time. Picture This is a free app which can be downloaded to help children identify leaves and plants in their garden by scanning them with a tablet or phone. Our next activity has a particular focus on use of the senses, which may appeal to children with sensory issues. This activity can provide a calming and relaxing way to learn while engaging with nature. Sensory activities facilitate exploration and naturally encourage children to use scientific processes while they play, create, investigate, and explore. Children can be challenged to gather a natural collection from the trees in their locality and arrange them in a sensory box or tray. These sensory boxes can provide a unique environment for children to create their own mini forests or jungles, which can form the basis for imaginative play and learning. Children can be challenged to use their sensory tray to complete sorting activities or represent mathematical concepts in a creative way. Leaves, twigs, seeds, and fruit can also be added to a water bottle to create a sense of wonder. Children can be encouraged to sit on the floor and roll their bottles to investigate forces and slopes. Maybe they could take short videos to record their observations. Sinking and floating investigations can be carried out using different leaves and twigs. The discovery bottle can be a finished product, or it might become a source of inquiry for the child. I wonder what would happen if I added some washing up liquid. I wonder what would happen if I added some soil. The NCSE has developed some resources on their website for home learning, one of which includes instructions for making a sensory box. Our final activity is Build a Raft. This open investigation can be used to deepen pupils' understanding of floating and waterproof materials. Pupils can be challenged to design and make a raft using natural materials from trees. Careful questioning can guide the children towards considering the materials they use and how they arrange them in terms of size and balance. In the exploration stage of this activity, children can consider the natural materials available to them and suitability of same through unstructured play. They can explore the textures, shapes, and structures of the materials and their suitability for the task. What role will the twigs and leaves play in their design? Is it better with or without leaves? Would moss be suitable? What could we use for a sail? Is a sail necessary? How do we stick or glue the raft together? And is there a better way of doing it? The inquiry process will enable the children to observe materials and ask questions and investigate. Planning of their design can take many forms. It may be a sketch, a written piece, or a simple exchange of ideas with a sibling or parent. The making stage of this activity will involve the children using their materials to complete their raft as planned. When the design process is complete, pupils can be encouraged to test their designs and predict, observe, and evaluate the results. Will their raft float or sink? What can they change to get a different result? We were lucky enough to be able to test our rafts in a paddling pool, which makes a pleasant change from a puddle. Let's have a look and see how we got on. If you would like some additional resources to explore the theme of trees with your class, please see the 3 websites on screen now for additional resources. I'm now going to hand you over to Kathleen, who's going to have a look at our final sub-theme, plants and mini beasts.
Thank you, Michelle. Before I do that, we might just pop over to Paul again and see, has he any questions coming into us from our participants?
Perfect.
Thanks very much, Kathleen. Questions flying in over here, and we're doing our best to respond to as many as we possibly can. So please do keep them coming in. Brian has just asked the following question though. He says, I have really enjoyed the design and make activities so far, but where can I go to find more activities like this to send home as part of distance learning and for my class when we return to school? So again, thanks very much for this great question, Brian. We would suggest visiting our friends over at Discover, finding wonderful design and make activities. In their teacher planning guide, they've compiled many activities and arranged them by science strand and strand unit for both the junior and senior end of the school. Many of these activities are design and make tasks. And by clicking on the title of each activity, teachers can access comprehensive lesson plans, guides, etc. for undertaking each one, whether that's during this period of distance learning or when we return to school. We'll make sure to include a link actually to that teacher planning guide in our resources section on the website. So we hope that this answers your question, Brian. And now it's back over to you, Kathleen, to take us through the theme of plants and mini beasts.
Thank you, Paul. And yes, I've used that guide myself, the Discover Primary Science and Maths Teachers Planning Guide, and I have found it very helpful. So yes, it's a great one to have on our resource list. The months of May and June are a perfect time for children to engage with plants and mini beasts, both at school and at home. There are many obvious connections to the science strand, living things, but consider the maths opportunities to develop measures, shape and space, number, data, early mathematics, and early algebra through this topic. Are there technological or engineering opportunities that can also be meaningfully integrated? In this section, we will take a look at plants and mini beasts. There's a bounty of resources in this area to support schools. The difficulty can be narrowing the focus for your pupils in your context. Here we will be looking at developing green fingers, planting for pollination, and mini beasts all around. Similar to the previous poplets, this theme allows for teachers to plan for learning experiences which explore maths and science, skills and content meaningfully. Take a moment to check it out. Planting is a real-life experience that all children can engage in, whether they have a garden, a window box, or an indoor setting. There are wonderful inquiry opportunities with planting, as we will shortly demonstrate. When choosing an activity for your class, remember the age range. There is no point asking an infant child to plant pumpkin seeds and then wait months to see the results. Young children need to plant seeds that are ready to go. Cress is often a popular choice, but why not change to mustard seeds? These can give a little more flavour to sandwiches prepared at home, whilst illustrating to the child the purpose of growing our own vegetables. If growing lettuce, choose the cut and come again variety, as rather than growing a head of lettuce, the children can cut the separated leaves as they grow, as they need them for their lunch. For plenty of advice on growing vegetables and a whole lot more, check out Paddy Madden's website, Engage with Nature, where you will find videos, resources, child and parent activities, and Paddy's own blog. Today, we're looking at growing marrow-fat peas at home. There are lots of different types of peas that can be used, but marrow-fat peas are very accessible in both the local shops and in your own kitchen press. To begin, you will need marrow-fat peas, kitchen towel, and Ziploc bags. Children will be wrapping the peas in the tissues before placing them in a bag. But let's introduce some inquiry here. What could we test using the materials above? With younger children, the phrase, I wonder, is a lovely prompt. I wonder what would happen if we put the seeds in a damp or a dry tissue. Let's find out. What else could the children test? I wonder, will the peas grow in a dark or bright place? Could we test if peas grow in a cold or warm place? Ask the children, can you think of a question you would like to test? Remind children about fair testing. What will we keep the same? And what one thing will we change? As with all inquiries, encourage children to record their predictions first. Ideally, peas need a damp, dark, warm place to germinate. It's recommended that children record on the bag the date and contents. After approximately 3 to 4 days, children should see the peas sprouting. In examining the contents of their different bags, there will be questions. Why have the peas in the dry tissue, the cold fridge, or the bright windowsill not sprouted? Encourage children to share their thoughts. And for the next stage, children will need a milk carton, pebbles, and some compost. Pose some guiding questions to the children. What will happen to the carton when we water it? How can we stop water pooling at the bottom? How do we stop compost from blocking the small water holes in the base? Activities in the garden offer excellent opportunities for higher order, open-ended questions that allow children to delve deeper into science content and lead to further learning. Throughout this process, children can record their observations either in written form or through annotated drawings in their learning logs. There are lots of opportunities to integrate measure and data activities to enrich the learning process. Problem solving is a natural aspect of inquiry as children work out why certain peas did not germinate. It can be more formally included through guided questions and utilising resources such as the Enrich Maths website. Perhaps you wish to integrate digital technology, allowing the pupils to take photos of their observations and share with their class. A nice activity to integrate oral language, report writing and drama is to encourage children to record a report for the gardening world, which could be a TV show, radio show, or even a magazine. This can be audio recorded, video recorded, or a typed magazine article. Let's now take a look at one of Paddy's videos that shows the stages of the growth of Mange 2 from the Ziploc bag to the outdoors.
Hello, I'm Paddy Madden. Welcome to another activity for the SCSE programme in your school. Mange 2 peas can be sown in a grow bag in a sunny area of the school, even on concrete. You will need sprout the peas in a warm, dark place, such as a hot press. Place the peas between 2 damp layers of kitchen towel. Place the damp towel with the peas in a transparent lunch bag and seal. When the peas have sprouted, place them in biodegradable pots. Place the pots in a light box facing the window. When the plants are about 2.5 centimetres high, harden them off outside during the school day. Bring them in the evening. You make a wigwam by placing 4 canes the same distance apart in the bag. Tie at the top using a piece of string. Tie string around the canes all the way to the top, leaving about 10 centimetres between each string. Place the pots under the lowest strings when the peas are about 15 centimetres high. Then label and water, and the tendrils will climb up the strings. So, until our next activity, goodbye, slán agus beannacht.
And Paddy has lots of videos like this explaining planting vegetables and many more ideas for the school garden and at home. For more ideas on planting vegetables and other simple to follow outdoor opportunities, see Wild Teaching from Slane Principal Paul O'Donnell or the website Garden Organic for all your growing advice. Coincidentally, today is World Bee Day, as designated by the United Nations to raise awareness of the importance of pollinators. 1/3 of our bee species are threatened with extinction from Ireland. This is because we have drastically reduced the amount of food and safe nesting sites in our landscapes. Pollination fascinates children as they can see a scientific process come to life in their very own gardens. A wildlife meadow will add greatly to the biodiversity of any garden at home or in school. Paddy Madden once again shares a wonderful video approximately 2 minutes long, walking you through the process step by step. You will notice in this video how much maths is incorporated in this activity, from measures to fractions and much more. Now that garden centres have reopened, wildflower seeds are very accessible. Here's a box I bought on my own local SuperValue. To get you started on this topic, take a look at the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan from the National Biodiversity Data Centre, available both in English agus in Gaeilge. Tá ranan ag an sih gréasán seo do scoilne agus do Gargini. Comá lei sin tá leabhar forbethe do scoilne. Tá leag an burla agus Gaeilge den leabhar. Tá gach uile rud faoi féilneoirí ann, comá le plan níomh 10 chéim. So what are pollinators? This lovely resource from BugLife and available on the Sustainable Learning website introduces children to the many pollinators that we have and encourages them to keep a record. This could then be extended to developing data skills through recording quantities over a set time period on a bar chart. To encourage pollinators such as bees, butterflies, moths, birds and beetles, have a look at the types of plants that are in your own garden. Which ones attract pollinators? This activity from the same website gets children to keep a table of their findings, encouraging skills of observation, classification, analysis, and record keeping. The ebook, Gardening for Biodiversity, has a visual identifier of pollinating plants in each season, which could be quite helpful. Produced by Laois County Council with the assistance of Heritage Ireland, this free book details projects to help wildlife with practical tasks suitable for everyone, from the total beginner to the more ambitious DIY enthusiast. The Art Cultural Centre in Dublin recently streamed their show Bees, the musical, on their website. They have developed a fabulous class pack to nurture drama and the arts through the theme of the bee, and is well worth a look for all of those who wish to integrate STEM and the arts. Links for both this and Gardening for Biodiversity are available in the resource section on our website. And there are plenty of digital technology opportunities, from taking photos, sharing on platforms such as Seesaw, or creating a post or web page with Adobe Spark to peer share a pollinator identification card. Mini beasts are a firm favourite with children, as they ignite their natural curiosity in the world around them. Recently, our first edition of STEM Smuinche, an e-bulletin for primary teachers, focused on the theme of mini beasts, with some fabulous activities that can be copied and sent directly home. These include an infant hunt, an extended hunt using identification sheets, a spider safari, and ending with a STEM challenge of designing a crazy creature. Consider how you might adapt any of these activities for senior pupils, children with special educational needs, or those needing additional challenge. Can you enrich these activities by introducing data where children can record and graph their findings? Or perhaps they could develop their own classification system to share with the class. Are there inquiry opportunities? Could your pupils compose questions they would like to investigate further as a class? Within the e-bulletin, there are a variety of links to further resources from Explorify, Woodlands Trust, Enrich, the National Botanics Gardens, Wildlife Watch UK, and the Primary Science Teachers Trust. Is achwan intache an toriach nadur o gar han luz. To tror an de fosti module le toriach darde ge yena in an origin vein, no in a gyantra o chula. Am meg posti an in aun curlesh an smuin of shot agus toriach zara a yarach con ranchla na biri. Dedige shot a yenav eg winchu sod as green grafana no liniach di simply. In a yean uber iontak shachar fad, beidir go meg an skull an aun las of winchas tu shot sa tochi, mar hurriacht fehedi no dulra. To register to receive this fortnightly e-bulletin direct to your own email account, see the link on your screen or go to our website. And as mentioned, here are some of the web links throughout the section. A compiled list of all web links will be available in our webinar resource section on our website. Let's now look at bringing all three themes together in a concluding STEM project. Often when we think of STEM projects, we think of big constructions or large collaborative projects that can take some time. Here's a suggestion for a STEM project that simply requires observation, imagination, pencil and paper. Design a dream garden. Following a unit of work in the garden, there is a great opportunity for pupils to use their new scientific knowledge on plants, trees, birds and mini beasts, while also turning on their maths eyes. Things to consider include: who is it for? Are they designing a garden for themselves, for their teacher, for the President of Ireland? Or for younger children, are they designing it for their favourite teddy or a small pet or animal? Give focus to your project. What math skills do you want to develop and how will you do that? What criteria will assist you? What science content could be included? Consider what has already been covered in class previously or currently through distance learning. Is there a role for technology and engineering? Will you add a design and make element to it? Will you use digital technology for self-assessment or for presentation skills? SketchUp for Schools allows students to digitally create 3D shapes. Why not design a shed, birdhouse, or other structure for the garden? Consider criteria to guide pupils. This is important if you want to develop specific skills and content meaningfully. Will differentiation play a role here? Could you provide different criteria for different groups of pupils? A sample template is included in our resource section of the website. Feel free to adjust according to your class context and differentiate for various pupil groups in your class. I'll now pass you over to Michelle, who will bring us through stories and STEM.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. During this section of the webinar, we're going to explore how we can use storybooks to develop children's curiosity and interest in science, maths, and STEM. Stories are a great way to hook children's attention while also providing opportunities to develop science and maths concepts. As well as deepening their understanding, using storybooks can also help to develop skills in many areas of the curriculum. Well-selected books can further enhance children's understanding about living things, their world around them, and help to ignite their curiosity. Children's stories provide a great context for STEM, an opportunity to make abstract concepts more concrete. They provide opportunities for children to get a sense of the bigger picture and bring facts to life. We are now going to watch a short video clip that explains how storybooks can be used to introduce concepts in both maths and science.
Reading aloud is a staple in childhood, at home, in preschools, in childcare settings, in libraries, and in classrooms. Sharing a story together is a time of joy and is an important moment to nurture young readers and writers. Our research builds on the everyday practice of sharing stories and asks what happens when we approach a story with a math or science lens. Through our partnerships with educators in a broad range of learning contexts, we have collaboratively learned how to leverage shared reading as an opportunity to experience wonder for mathematics and science while also exploring and discussing stories. Together, we have developed resources called Storytime STEM that are designed to support children's learning and educators' learning. We're learning how to select stories that make an engaging read aloud and have vibrant mathematical and scientific potential. We're learning where to pause, what questions we might ask, and what kinds of activities after reading can support children's further investigations. We hope that these ideas and resources inspire readers to approach any story with a math and science lens.
Do you think these are real ducks, or do you think they are toy ducks?
Rectángulo. Al piso. A la puerta.
How do you know? They came out from the machine.
¿Eh? Ahí hay ciencia. ¿Dónde más hay ciencia? Atrás, que no he escuchado atrás. La olla. La olla, muy bien. La mesa, muy bien.
Children are natural mathematicians and scientists who are constantly asking questions, and a story is a vibrant context to hear and to celebrate their ideas and to nurture their dispositions towards and identities with math and science. Our resources are designed with and for educators. In addition to supporting children's learning, we're also mindful of how these resources can support educators' learning. Within the familiar context of a shared reading experience, we can practice things such as asking open-ended questions or eliciting and responding to children's ideas. Stories take us inside a child's world, and their world is mathematically and scientifically alive.
The story that we have chosen for today's webinar is The Gruffalo by Julia Donaldson. The Gruffalo can be used in an integrated approach across all areas of the curriculum. But today, let's take a look at how to use it as a trigger for STEM development. A good stimulus will provide opportunities for children to stop and make observations and inferences, as well as providing many opportunities for them to ask questions and carry out investigations. Well-selected books can further enhance children's understanding about living things, about children's personal interests and curiosity. How does the story of the Gruffalo link in with maths and science in our curriculum? Like previous poplets, this story offers vast opportunities to integrate maths and science skills and content meaningfully. Looking at the integrative nature of using stories as a stimulus for developing science and maths concepts, consider the development of those higher order skills in maths and science in a meaningful context for children. Throughout these tasks, children are problem solving, working collaboratively, reasoning and communicating their thinking. These rich tasks allow children to develop key problem solving skills that they can transfer to all other curricular areas. How can we use the story of the Gruffalo as a stimulus for activities in maths and science? Looking at strand of measures in maths, and in particular length, we can explore the vocabulary of long and short, tall and small by talking about the animal footprints in the story. To support children, we can provide visual aids such as pictures that they could order footprints from smallest to largest. For children who need more of a challenge, maybe we could pose a question that they can carry out with an investigation. Is the animal with the biggest footprint the tallest animal? How could we find this out? Inquiry-based activities like this allow children to be agents of their own learning and allow them to develop key skills in problem solving. This STEAM building challenge that we have chosen today does a wonderful job of combining science, maths, technology, engineering, and art. The challenge is to build a log pile house for snake in the Gruffalo. Consider the habitat of snakes. Where do they live in the forest? Why would they choose a log pile house? Do they build the house, or do they simply find a pile of logs and call it home? When integrating maths, consider opportunities for measurement, number, shape and space, and early maths. Engineering and technology naturally come together in the design and make element of the actual construction. Explore how the sticks fit together. How high can you stack them before they tumble? Could we add something to our design that would help stabilize the house? From an artistic perspective, is it appealing to look at? Did you select a certain type of stick? Could you decorate or camouflage it with natural materials? The log pile house can look like a work of nature's art. Children need to consider where they would put their log pile house in the garden. Ask them the question. Is there any area of your garden better than others? Maybe a quieter area or somewhere near water. Would it be better to build a bigger log pile house to fit more animals in it? And what kind of animals might it attract? Can you make it twice the size? Could you make it half the size? This activity is also showcased in the book Gardening for Biodiversity, as referenced by Kathleen earlier, and a link to this can be found in our resource section. Let's consider how we could extend this activity for older children or those in need of a challenge. Consider animals and their prey. Could children design a home for a woodland animal made from natural materials and that would protect it from prey? They would need to consider the different materials that are available to them and the protection or camouflage it might offer. Extending it further, we could include considerations about how we could keep it warm in winter and cool in summer. Introduce possible insulation, light reflection, earthquake protection, and more. Digital technology could assist with the design using tools like SketchUp for schools, or with self-assessment using tools like Adobe Spark, Seesaw, Photo Collage, and more. Design and make activities such as these help develop key 21st century skills, such as communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. There are lots of opportunities to support children who need guidance, but also extensions for children who need more of a challenge. If you would like to explore a storybook which might suit the senior end of the school, you might like to take a look at The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. The story centres around a boy in a drought-ravaged village in Africa who wonders how things work. He teaches himself English from old science books and builds a windmill for his village. This might provide a nice stimulus for the senior end of the school to explore the possibility of design and make activity involving a windmill. If you would like some suggested storybooks to develop specific maths and science concepts, we have 2 Padlets on our website which highlight potential storybooks that you might like to utilise. The 3rd website on your screen also has a selection of books categorised by age, which might be useful to explore the different strands of the science curriculum. We might take a moment to reflect on what areas of the science curriculum you find most challenging to teach, as you will now see a poll appear on your screen. Thank you for your participation in that poll. It's very interesting for us to see energy and forces identified as a key challenge. So this will be valuable information for us to know for future webinars. So thank you very much for that. I'm now going to ask Kathleen to recap on our key messages and take us through the extensive resources available from the PDST.
Thanks, Michelle. So as Michelle said, let's take a moment to recap on these messages. Consider your own teaching and learning experiences in STEM as you read these messages for yourselves. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many supports have arisen online for distance learning. On our Twitter page at PDST Primary STEM, we share resources daily from the many partners in STEM, such as this one from @Explorify School, and this one from Paul O'Donnell, previously mentioned as author of Wild Teaching. We take a theme for maths and a theme for science each week, and we share an activity a day to support teachers in designing practical activities for learning at home. Twitter can be an excellent platform for developing learning communities. Many schools now have an account and share the work of their pupils, offering further lesson ideas for us all to choose from. Here we have St. Columba's PS Straw in Draperstown, Northern Ireland, sharing an outdoor STEM challenge for P7. We also have 3rd and 4th class in Barna Carroll NS in Clare Morris, County Mayo, sharing their wildlife garden projects. An excellent assessment strategy for this teacher to see how much content the children grasped. Skull Ingalls Senior in Tala, County Dublin, recently shared live cam footage from inside a nest as chicks hatched. Well worth a watch. And finally, Emma Kate Moran, a 3rd class teacher in Boherbune NS in Cork, shared a variety of the wonderful STEM projects her pupils have engaged in, including a number of outdoor design and make activities using natural materials. These are just a snippet of the many ideas and practices that are shared on this social media platform. Follow us at PDST Primary STEM and the greater PDST organisation at PDST-IE. Throughout these unprecedented times, PDST continues to support teacher professional learning remotely through direct school support, live webinars, and in developing a large range of online resources to support distance learning. As you can see from our website, we have an entire section devoted to distance learning, along with an additional section that gives you access to all the webinars in the Learning for All series in conjunction with the Teaching Council. PDST has also worked with SkullNet to produce a huge number of learning paths and other resources in all curricular areas, free for teachers to access. Our own team have developed specific resources for science, maths, and STEM to support teachers in facilitating distance learning. This includes our fortnightly e-bulletin STEM Smuincha mentioned earlier, teacher manuals in English agus I Nailga, learning paths for maths, and a lovely section on potential STEM learning experiences at home. Check it out at the link here. Following today's webinar, we will have a specific section for this webinar series in the STEM Sawalia button there in blue. It will include a recording of today's webinar for you to peruse at your leisure, along with a bank of resources to support today's topics. This will include web links, templates, and activity cards. And please feel free to share these supports with your colleagues. So now I think it's time to see how Paul and the guys are getting on in the question and answer room. Paul, I'm sure the questions are flying in at this stage, are they?
They absolutely are, Kathleen. Yeah, thanks a million. We've just had an incredible amount of questions come in this morning, and I would love to be able to answer them all live, but I know the team are working hard to get to as many people as they possibly can. I think I'll try to address 2 more now, actually, before we finish up the webinar. Okay. The first question we have comes from Linda. And Linda asks, what about the child that has no garden? How can we adapt these activities for them? So again, thank you, Linda, for reminding us that not every child will have access to a garden for these activities. So for activities involving the birds or the trees, for example, maybe visits to local spaces, parks, fields, obviously government advice permitting, could allow the child to take part in these activities. Or maybe it's as simple as looking out the window, observing the wildlife in the local environment and taking it all in that way. That might be a nice way to engage in some of these tasks. Sure, even foxes have made their way to Grafton Street recently. With the planting specifically, as Kathleen and Paddy have already illustrated, it can be done indoors. Maybe transfer to a pot and then move to a window box. Or maybe you could go about sowing a wild meadow in a lunchbox, see what happens. So hopefully that's a few short ideas there, Linda, that might be useful to all children really, but it's particularly the children you have in mind there. The second question then that I'll answer was sent in by Stephen. And Stephen asks, what time frame would you recommend would be most suitable for a design and make activity like those seen during this morning's webinar? He asks, would 1 lesson be enough or would you need more time? So again, thank you very much, Stephen, for this question. And we've actually received this question a number of times throughout this morning's webinar. So I'm hoping this answer will be helpful to many of today's participants. As we know, time is always a concern in a busy curriculum, but with design and make activities, we can sometimes dive into the making element and forget the potential learning during the exploration, planning, and both self and peer assessment and evaluation. So maybe if you're using this activity, as part of your distance learning plan or indeed back in school in the future, why not extend it across a week, maybe even extend it across a month, giving time for each element in the process and allowing the children time to explore, discuss their materials, plan, draw, show their designs to each other, and maybe following the making stage, during which you might have to make certain adjustments and so on. You could guide the evaluation or the assessment with questions such as, is there anything you would change? Could you improve this design? What aspect of your raft, for example, are you most proud of? So I hope that answers your question, Stephen. And as I say, I hope it's helpful to a number of our participants today. And once again, just on behalf of the Q&A team here, I'd really like to thank you all for your questions this morning. It's been fascinating reading through them. And as I say, we tried to answer as many as we could. So I'll now hand you back to Kathleen to bring the webinar to a close.
Thank you very much, Paul. And that is so true. Thanks to Paul, Siobhan, Patrick and Barbara there on that. And so folks, that brings us to the end of our very first live webinar for the primary PDST Primary STEM series, STEM Sawalya.
We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have and that you have 1 or 2 ideas or resources to take away with you to support your distance teaching over the next 6 weeks.
We'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our team and the primary STEM team for their work in designing this, and a particular thanks to Siobhan, Barbara, Patrick and indeed Paul working behind the scenes today. We would really appreciate your feedback to guide next week's webinar, so please complete the evaluation form at the end of this showing.
And if you have enjoyed today's webinar, we hope you will join us again next week, where Paul and I will be in the kitchen, cooking up some resources and ideas to support distance learning at home. Webinar 2, STEM in the Kitchen, is now open for anyone wishing to register. So until then, slán agus beannacht.